Previously, on Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, Marth stops a pirate attack at the island kingdom of Talos, sails to the mainland, ridding the port town of Galdar of their pirate infestation, then crosses the Ghoul's Teeth Mountains where he clashes with the Soothsayer bandits, defeating them. With many allies by his side, he makes the first steps towards the kingdom of Aurelis. After crossing the mountains, Marth's army arrives at Aurelis, hoping to join with the Aurelian army. However, many enemy forces still block their path, with the thundering of hooves being audible in the distance. This map is the first in the game that starts with a battle preparation screen, albeit a rather rudimentary one, with no inventory management whatsoever, though it does allow to scout the map before deployment. In this map, 14 units must be deployed. The player army deploys in the southeast, while the opposing army has a fighter force in the east and a cavalry force in the west, both of which will move towards the player. A couple of thieves in this map threaten the villages and must be intercepted. By the lake, there's a house that explains weapon effectiveness. Armor slayers are effective against knights and generals, riders' banes against cavaliers, and rapiers against all the previous classes, plus paladin. Watch out for weapon durability. Other houses further away tell the player about the boss's weapon, the rider's bane, of the usage of door and breach keys, and of weapon material tiers that denote their strength, though each requires a higher weapon level. Next to this last house is a convoy and an armory, the same as the previous two chapters. I make chase towards the lower thief, with Cord and Seda ending the threat to the south village, while I send cavalry to spook the hired thief away from the north village, as thieves can cross rivers. I send a force to the lake to intercept the enemy fighters, while the rest of my army moves west to prepare for the charge of the Macedonian cavalry, which will fall easily to Marth's rapier, with one of them even dropping the armor slayer sword. Among this cavalry force is Mathis, who, when attacking you, will lament that he couldn't see Lena one last time. This one's recruitment is pretty easy to figure out, just talk to him with Lena. Turns out Lena is a Macedonian noble who fled to avoid marriage with Prince Michaelis of Macedon, with her brother Mathis being forced to join the army. Lena convinces him to switch sides, with Mathis asking if Lena has found a man for herself. She denies, with Mathis warning her not to fall for thieves. Mathis is a cavalier. His stats are for the most part unremarkable, being either equal or lower to your previous two cavaliers, who have had potentially 3 chapters worth of combat, so the difference is even more pronounced. His growths are also low for the most part. The one advantage Mathis does have though is his weapon level and growth. Starting with 8, he's 1 point away from using silver swords, and can use killing edges and silver lances at base, although he struggles using the latter weapon. He's not very strong, though he could be used in a pinch if the player has roster issues. Visiting the south village earns Marth 5,000 gold for his war efforts. The river is blocked by a knight and 2 archers. Marth could ford the river, but other units can only cross by the bridge, so I deal this force with Abel, Seda and Marth. The remaining cavaliers charge down this advance, but are easily slain by Marth. A forested island holds a house that warns the player about the danger of wyvern knights, and next to it, an arena, a facility that can be used to earn gold and experience at the risk of unit death. The north village holds a happy surprise for Marth. Merrick, a friend of his that has been studying magic in the desert city of Kadin. When war broke out, he left seeking for Marth. With his mighty magic Excalibur, he will be of great aid. Merrick is a mage, a 6-movement class that wields tomes. Due to his nature as a magic user, his strength and skill are mostly irrelevant, since magic weapons don't factor strength for attack, or skill, or hit rate. The trade-off being that magic targets resistance rather than defense, which is always 0 for enemy units, and has its hit rates reduced by luck rather than speed, which is also 0 for enemy units, and ignores terrain avoid modifiers as well. So castles, mountains and forests are no safe place against mages. As if that wasn't enough, all tomes are 1 to 2 range weapons that allow for easy exploitation of enemy range deficiencies. His weapon level is also mostly irrelevant, since he has exclusive access to the Excalibur, one of the best tomes in the game, with 100 hit rate, good might, extra critical rate, and lightweight, making him a pretty good boss killer. His weapon level growth might allow him to use the Thoron later on if the Excalibur is fully spent. He also had a surprising high HP growth for a magic unit, and his base is not bad at all. His main weakness though is perhaps his lower movement, making it hard for him to keep up with most other units. Holding the castle is Benfion, a level 5 cavalier wielding a rider's bane. This makes him very threatening against cavaliers. Any who wish to engage him should do so from range with javelins. He's also a bit speedier than previous bosses. I lead the fight with Merrick's Excalibur, dealing him a big chunk of damage, which I follow up with a javelin throw from Cain, and end him with Ogma. With him defeated, he drops the rider's bane. Marth seizes the castle, relieving it from the occupational forces of Macedon, but a villager warns that Hardin is guarding the King of Aurelis and Princess Nina of Archanea in a fortress to the north. He also gives Marth a silver sword to be given to Hardin. Marth marches northward. Marth's arrival has been noticed by Prince Hardin of Aurelis. With the union of Altaian and Aurelian forces at hand, Hardin takes this chance to fight back at the Macedonian occupation of the castle. For this map, 10 units must be deployed and you're joined by Hardin and his men for a 15-unit strong army. Hardin is a cavalier. He starts with pretty strong stats, somewhat comparable with Jagan, and stronger than any other cavalier, with good growths to boot. His starting weapon level is enough to use the silver sword we have just been gifted, and his high growth in it makes him a candidate to use the strongest lance in the game. His high level of 6 also puts him close to the paladin promotion as well. He is a very good unit, and will contribute a lot for the rest of the game. Wolf is a horseman, a 9 movement class that wields bows. His stats are a bit on the lower side, except for his good speed, though he has a low growth in it, instead having high growths for HP, strength and weapon level, though he has an unfortunate skill growth. Speaking of weapon level, his weapon level is 1 point shy from being able to use silver bows, and like what I said in the previous episode, 6 is actually not enough. Sorry, Castor. He's a decent unit, and one of the better bow units in the game. High movement and speed go a long way with this one. Sedgar is another horseman. His stats are for the most part lower or equal to Wolf's, and so are his growths, except for HP, which is amazing, and his skill, which is still bad. His weapon level being lower, along with his growth, renders him stuck with lower quality bows, being hard to reach the threshold needed for the silver bow. He still has the good movement of horseman, and decent speed, but his low stats mean he's usually benched. Rocher is another cavalier. His stats aren't that bad. He has a great HP growth, but an awful speed growth. His weapon level is enough for silver lances and killing edges, but his growth in it is low as well, making it a bit difficult for him to use silver swords. A promotion to paladin can fix his speed, but he has to compete with 5 other units, 3 of which are more attractive candidates for promotion. All in all, he's held back a bit by his speed and need for promotion for improvement, but could be useful in a pinch if the player lacks cavaliers. Violent is the third new cavalier of this map. His stats are the lowest of the bunch, and his growths aren't that amazing either, except for weapon level. His base in weapon level allows him to use the bare essentials, but is a bit far from killing edges and silver weapons. Some training might allow him to use better weapons, but many other units have either better stats, or joining time, or both, so he doesn't stand out positively. The Altaian forces start in the southeast, while Hardin's men start in the southwest, protected mostly by geography. To the northeast is a small force that will move towards the player, while in the northwest most units will adopt a defensive stance, only sending a knight, archers and thieves, one of them gunning for the village in the north. For the eastern side, I send Marth to meet with the cavaliers and a few other units to deal with the rest, bows in particular being good against the Pegasus Knight. Among this enemy force is a bishop named Wendell, who will move towards Marth to join his army, hoping that together they'll be able to stop Garnev, who has seized the desert city of Kadin. Wendell is a bishop, a 6 movement class that wields tomes and staves. He has good HP, speed and weapon level, the latter allowing him to use any non-exclusive tome and staff in the game. This gives him incredible utility, as he can use imported staves like Physic, Warp and Ward, and he can use the best tomes available for offensive pressure. He has a decent HP growth, but most others are low, like speed, but his base in it is so massive it really doesn't matter. Despite his low movement, the amount of utility Wendell brings to the army should not be underestimated, and he will be useful throughout the whole game. The rest of my Altaian forces move west to help relieve Hardin, who will occupy the forest tile in preparation of the western offensive. On the east side, near the river, there's a house that will reveal that the castle possesses many treasures, though you need a thief to open the chests. While closer to the village is a house that talks about the port town of Warren, which holds many stores that sell rare items. When Marth visits the village, a man talks about the kingdom of Perathi, where he saw a maneki, a man who can turn into a dragon. Not only that, he managed to pick up a strange stone, which he decides to give to Marth. This firestone is a special weapon, usable only by Manekites, though we don't have one right now. On the west bank of the river, there's another house that warns about forts, which hold enemy units that can reinforce the main force if not blocked. Those would be the northmost forts. east holds Cavaliers, and west holds Pegasus Knights, who will spawn on the start of enemy phase if I'm not fast enough. Next to the house is a convoy and an armory, which notably stocks steel swords, javelins, and steel bows. With my forces united, I make my way to the castle, which occupies 2 tiles on this map, being guarded by a knight and the boss. The knight will move away from the castle to attack nearby units, which could allow for Marth to seize the castle without engaging the boss, but I would miss out on his reward. This knight will drop a door key when defeated, which allows any unit to open doors, though it is single use. Guarding one half of the castle is Merak, a level 5 knight with a silver lance. He's pretty strong with great defense, but has no speed at all, so he gets doubled by pretty much everyone. I send Merrick with his Excalibur to attack him, and he one-rounds him with ease. What a chump. He drops the silver lance, which I give to Seda. When Marth seizes the castle, he meets with the King of Aurelis, who tells him he will meet soon with Princess Nina of Archanea. He also warns that many enemies still occupy the castle. The fight isn't over. With Marth's entry to the castle, General Emerius of Macedon starts barking orders to his troops to fight us and loot the castle's treasures before escaping. For this map, 14 units must be deployed. The player army starts in the southeast. On the outside of the castle is a convoy and an armory which sells the same weapons as the previous chapter. Most enemy units will adopt a defensive position, the exception being the Cavaliers in the north yard, the Knights in the throne room, and the Thieves, who will make a beeline towards chests to loot their contents. 2 chests in particular are incredibly close to Thieves, and some warp staff action will be necessary to secure them. Next to our starting position is a locked room with a thief named Rickard, so I open the door with the door key, and he moves towards Marth, thanking him for the rescue and joins the army. Rickard is a thief. Much like Julian, he has high speed and low everything else. Also, his growths in HP, strength and speed are good. His weapon level is abysmal, and his growth in it is non-existent. However, combat is not what Rickard is for, but his thief utility, especially in this chapter. Having 2 thieves is going to help cover ground more quickly. He's another utility unit, useful for chapters where there are multiple treasure chests to collect, though he's even frailer than Julian, so more care is required. I start by moving my entire army in a rush towards the center. I use Lena to warp Kane, equipped with the Rider's Bane, then Marth to protect the further chests and deal with the nearby enemies. Wendell uses Ward on Wolf to give him a decaying +7 resistance boost to help deal with this map's mages. As I approach the center, the northern units begin their attack. Meanwhile, my thieves make efforts to collect the chests. The one nearby my starting position has 10,000 gold. The central chest has a physics staff. It has the same small healing effect as the heal staff, but has infinite range. The chest next to the mage has an armor slayer sword. The westmost chest has a seraph robe, the first stat booster I encounter, which will boost max HP by 9 when used. I gave this one to Marth to improve his survivability. In the northmost chest is a killing edge, the best of both worlds. It has the strength of steel swords and the weight and accuracy of iron swords, with extra critical rate to boot. I also make my approach to the throne room with the help of ward-boosted units to take on the mage. With the throne room mostly cleared, I advance towards the boss. Emerius is a level 1 general with a silver sword. He's much bulkier and stronger than the previous boss, with extra hit as well, threatening most units at melee range. He sits on a throne tile though, which doesn't provide the avoid boosts of castle tiles. I start with Merrick's Excalibur, dropping him to 2 HP and finish him with Marth. He drops a master key, which I give to Julian. I seize the throne to end the chapter, and finally Marth meets with Nina, who managed to escape Archanea when it was invaded by Dollar. With Marth confirming Althea's allegiance to Archanea, Nina grants him the Fire Emblem, Archanea's greatest treasure, given to one who will save the world. It allows Marth to open treasure chests as well. Marth's united army moves to the south. With Aurelis liberated, a long journey to Archanea will soon begin, but the treacherous mountain terrain will confine Marth's army through a long, winding path. The capital might just be out of reach, but Marth won't give up on his duty. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time, as we cross the mountains through Archanea's east.